Hello, today we're going to be digging into direct and indirect object pronouns in Spanish. And specifically, I'm going to assume that you've already learned how to do direct object pronouns and you've already learned how to do indirect object pronouns. But what we're learning about today is how do we combine them? All right, I'm going to keep the notes brief and I'm going to encourage you to pause whenever you need to write something down. All right, let's start with our big idea. So we're talking today about pronouns. Pronouns are short words that replace nouns, because the nouns are longer, to make a sentence shorter. Object pronouns are the ones that go after a verb, and there are two kinds. There are direct object pronouns that are directly impacted by the verb, and indirect object pronouns, which are indirectly impacted by the verb. So if I kick the ball to you, what did I kick? The ball. The ball was directly impacted by my kick. That's the direct object pronoun. To whom did I kick it? To you. So you were indirectly impacted. You're the indirect object. I did not kick you. That would be a whole different situation, right? If you were the direct object of the kick, that would be a problem. All right, so let's take a look. Let's start with direct object pronouns. Direct object pronouns answer the question what? What did you kick? The ball. And they generally go before a conjugated verb. The direct object pronouns are me, te, lo, or la, nos, os, los, or las. So for example, I can say, Julia dio el regalo a mí. Julia gave the gift to me. I can replace the gift, because what did she give? The gift. I can replace that with lo and put it before the verb. Julia lo dio a mí. Or, ellos explicaron la situación a nosotros. They explained the situation to us. What did they explain? The situation. So we're going to replace la situación with la, and we're going to put it in front of the verb. Ellos la explicaron a nosotros. They explained it to us. I'm going to give you 4 sentences here, and I want you to see if you can replace the underlined object with an object pronoun. Yo di la ensalada al camarero. Ellos pasaron los papeles a ti. Nosotros trajimos las pizzas a los chicos. Tú nunca revelaste el secreto a mí. All right, you're going to see the direct object pronoun in green, and you're going to notice that it's always before the verb. Yo la di al camarero. Ellos los pasaron a ti. Nosotros las trajimos a los chicos. And tú nunca lo revelaste a mí. All right, those were direct object pronouns. Now we're going to move on to indirect object pronouns. The indirect object pronoun answers to whom. I kicked the ball to you. To whom? To you. You are the indirect object. They also go before the conjugated verb, and they are me, te, le, nos, os, and les. These are normally verbs of communication or movement, like passing something to someone, singing something to someone, saying something to someone. All right, let's take a look at our examples again. These are the same sentences we saw before, but now we're asking ourselves to whom. Julia dio el regalo a mí. Julia gave the gift to me. To whom did she give it? To me. So I can replace a mí with me. Julia me dio el regalo. Or ellos explicaron la situación a nosotros. They explained the situation to us. To whom did they explain it? To us. So I can replace a nosotros with nos. Ellos nos explicaron la situación. Here are those same 4 practice sentences. Now I want you to replace the indirect object with a pronoun. Yo di la ensalada al camarero. Ellos pasaron los papeles a ti. Nosotros trajimos las pizzas a los chicos. And tú nunca revelaste el secreto a mí. Here's what we want to see. Yo le di la ensalada. Ellos te pasaron los papeles. Nosotros les trajimos las pizzas. And tú nunca me revelaste el secreto. All right. So far, all of that should be review. If it's not, go talk to your Spanish teacher. All right. Now we're moving into the new part. What do we do if we have both an IOP and a DOP? Both a direct object pronoun and an indirect object pronoun. And there's basically 2 rules we need to follow. If we have both, we're going to put the indirect object pronoun first and then the direct object pronoun. But if they both start with the letter L, it's a tongue twister. We don't like that. The IOP has to change to say. So if we ended up with Layla, not going to do that, say la. If we ended up with lay low, not going to do that either, say low. If we ended up with lace los, nope, say los. So the first one will turn into say. All right, let's go ahead and look at an example. As we go into these combined examples, I'm going to be using blue for the direct objects and red for the indirect objects. If you would like to color code, may I recommend that? Because you're going to notice that the colors flip. And if your eyes can see that visually, I think that might really help you. So, Julia dio el regalo a mí. She gave the gift, so that's the DOP. I'm going to turn that into lo. I'm going to turn a mí into me, but they need to switch orders when I replace them. Julia me lo dio. She gave me it. Or ellos explicaron la situación a nosotros. I can turn the la situación into la and the a nosotros into nos, but they have to switch places. Ellos nos la explicaron. All right, now it's your turn to try the exact same sentences we've had. Now you're making them really, really short. You're going to replace the blue part with a DOP and the red part with an IOP. Yo di la ensalada al camarero. Ellos pasaron los papeles a ti. Nosotros trajimos las pizzas a los chicos. Tú nunca revelaste el secreto a mí. Mis hermanas dieron unos regalos a mí. Yo siempre decía la verdad a mi madre. All right, may I recommend that you take a screenshot of this page? This page is probably the best representation of this whole deck of slides, and it's going to give you the color coding to show you how it works. So, yo di la ensalada al camarero because la ensalada turns into la and al camarero turns into le. It would have been Layla, but we don't like Layla, so we're going to make it se la. Yo se la di. Ellos pasaron los papeles a ti. Los papeles would turn into los. A ti would turn into te. Switch places. Ellos te los pasaron. Nosotros trajimos las pizzas a los chicos. Las pizzas turns into las. A los chicos turns into les. We can't have les las. We got to make it se las. Tú nunca revelaste el secreto a mí. El secreto becomes lo. A mí becomes me. Switch places. Tú nunca me lo revelaste. Mis hermanas dieron unos regalos a mí. Unos regalos turns into los, a mí turns into me. Mis hermanas me los dieron. Or yo siempre decía la verdad a mi madre. La verdad turns into la, a mi madre turns into le. Oh, I don't want Layla, so I'm going to make it se la. Yo siempre se la decía. One last thought. We did say that both IOPs and DOPs go before a conjugated verb. But there are three kinds of verbs where we attach the IOPs and DOPs to the end. We still put the IOP first. We still change it to say if they both start with the letter L. But we can do them at the end of infinitives, affirmative commands, and progressive verbs. Let's start with infinitives. With infinitives, if you're just attaching one pronoun, everything's fine. But if you attach two pronouns, you're going to have to add an accent, and it will be on the verb ending. So, for example, if I want to say, I don't want to read the book, yo no quiero leer el libro, I can say, yo no quiero leerlo. Or tú necesitas hacer la tarea, I can say, tú necesitas hacerla. Just one object pronoun, no accent needed. But if I say, yo voy a explicar la situación a ti, and I want to replace both of those, yo voy a explicártela, I need to put an accent on the A of the AR ending. Or a ella le gusta decir la verdad a nosotros, a ella le gusta decirnosla, and I need to add an accent on the ending of the verb. Next, if it's an affirmative command, if we're telling somebody to do something, whether we're adding one or two, we most of the time need an accent, and it's generally going to go, you just have to say it out loud, and wherever you hear the emphasis, that's where it goes. There are a few exceptions if it's a single syllable command, but for now, let's just say you're going to put an accent on there. So, for example, pasen la tarea a mí. Pásenme la tarea. So you have to say it out loud. Is it pásenme? Is it pásenme? Or is it pásenme? It's pásenme because the original emphasis was pasen, so the accent's on the a. Lean ese libro a los estudiantes would be léanselo. It's not léanselo. It's not léanselo. It's not léanselo. It's lean. So léanselo on the e. Da los regalos a nosotros would be danoslos. Accent on the a. Di tu nombre a mí. Dímelo. Accent on the d. All right, and finally with progressive verbs. Progressive verbs, you actually have a choice because with a progressive, you have a conjugated form of estar. So you could put the IOPs and DOPs in front of that. or you can attach them to the end of the ando or iendo verb. Since you already know how to put it in front, let's go ahead and practice putting it on the end. And either way, whether you're adding one or two, you're going to need an accent. It'll be on the a of ando or the a of iendo. So yo estoy hablando a ella would be yo estoy hablándole. Ella está llorando a mí would be ella está llorándome. Nosotros estamos considerándola. And